Now I'm going to show you a build order. Now this is a build that maybe I can show you in a couple different scenarios. One of them is against an aggressive build, and one is against a defensive build, or a macro econ build. So a lot of people, they say ZvT is hard, and it is. It's very difficult. It's extreme level of difficulty. But I want to help you out, because I too have been lost in the woods of what to do against Terran. But there's hope. There's hope for your ZvT play, and I will show you how to be safe and get ahead in ZvT. That's what I'm going to try to show you right here. So this is a brief announcement instructional video for ZvT in 2019. It's been changed a lot. There have been a bunch of different buffs to Terran, and I can't think of any nerfs. So you've got battle cruisers to worry about, you've got Hellion Banshee, you've got Hellbats. Some people will still pull out the old 2-1-1, which is a double Medivac Marine stim attack. That still happens sometimes. Sometimes there's Hellbat Liberator Harass. It's really tough to tell what's going on, so a lot of Zerg players will just open up in a ZvT. They won't really know what to do, and then they just die horribly to a timing. So what I'm going to try to show you here is a way to open up in a solid way, in a safe way that allows you to have a strong footing in the early game and power into your 3 base macro. That's the idea here. So let's do 2 games. I will talk through the build, but I will also show you a couple different scenarios and adjustments you can make. So this is the first game, and this is basically what happens when your opponent doesn't attack you for an extremely long period of time, and how to use that to your advantage. So here we have a ZvT, and we even opened it up on a map that's good for Terran. So this map has a bunch of destructible rocks, which are tough. Destructible rocks, it protects the bases. The rush is kind of medium. It's a medium or so rush. So what we're going to do is 13 Overlord to start things off when we're droning away. 17 hatch here at the natural. You can 16 hatch, there's not too much difference. So we're getting our 17 hatch. You can just take my vision for this, since that's kind of what we're focused on learning. Take in a couple more drones, and then I just rallied those eggs toward the extractor and then the spawning pool. So we're starting off with a hatch gas pool. Now, we're making 2 more to rally into the gas. Notice we have a nice 16 out of 16 here. That's wonderful. What am I doing with my first overlords? This first overlord is just going to fly here to check to see if there's a base, and then go to safe spot up here on the high ground. Basically every map is going to have one of these high ground pedestals. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to live, because they could lift a building and then shoot it with Marines, but it does create a cost for them to do that. Either they have to lift something or invest in an air-to-air attacking unit. So opening is nice. Second overlord, I usually just use this to scout for cheese, both in ZvT and ZvP. ZvP, you have stuff like Proxy Gateway Zealot, you have cannon rushes. Against Terran, you have proxy barracks, you have bunker rushes, and you don't really get that much additional information past the first overlord being here by sending a second one. So in my opinion, it's better to have your second overlord on your side of the map. So once the pool was done, I got 2 queens, I made 4 lings, I took ling speed, and I pulled 2 workers off gas. This is pretty important because we want to get a bunch of different mineral expenditures for the early game. We want to get 4 queens, we want to get a 3rd base, we want to get a roach warren, and we want to get a few more speedlings so we don't die to some YOLO Hellions. All of those are pure mineral cost. One thing that I see a lot of Zerg players do, and this applies to Protoss and Terran as well, is they'll float gas in the early game that doesn't really have a clear purpose. That's usually pretty bad, because what you want to do is immediately transition from earning resources to investing them into something that's going to gain value over time. So a queen, for example, gains value over time with its energy for injects and creep spread, or transfuse. A hatch gains value over time with the creep production that it makes and also the larva production, and it also gives you supply. This supply. So I made a 30 overlord. That's a really important overlord. I'm going to say it again. The 30 overlord is a really important overlord. Why? Because that's how you really power up your 2-base drone saturation. And it's a difficult overlord to make because that's the same time that you're getting notifications about the Reaper shooting your stuff. A lot of times when that happens, you kind of get all mixed up and it's hard to know what to focus on. So your 30 overlord is sort of timed with the Reaper harass. You could think about it that way. Of the Reapers coming in, yes, you want to use the lings to protect your drones, but you also want to make an overlord. So a 30 overlord was made, and then after the overlord pops out, you should start another one straight away. This is a really important step. If you really want super fast 2-base saturation, you have to have those overlords just coming out one at a time. As soon as this overlord is born, the next one begins. Because we pulled off gas, so we have pretty good mineral income. Another point that I've kind of been adjusting and experimenting with is when to take the 3rd base. Sometimes you'll hide a drone early and then take this base a little bit faster. I think anywhere between 3 minutes to 3:30 is a pretty good time to take a 3rd base. You can take it earlier than that, but it comes with the risk of sometimes they send a worker and they find it, which is a bummer. Or they send the Reaper over there and they kill it, which is also a bummer. So if you want real consistency, just wait until 3 minutes 30, because that's when your ling speed is done, and you use the 4 lings to escort the drone out to a base while you make 2 more queens. So I kind of leave that up to you. If you want to hide the drone for the fast 3rd, that's fine. If not, just use your 4 lings with ling speed to take this base. So we're droning up here without being supply blocked, making 2 more queens up to 4. And then after we get the 3rd base, we're going to be thinking about transitioning into some roaches and stuff. So we're still droning. All the larvae goes into drones. We can see with this first overlord across the map what's happening. So I can see that the Reaper is defensive now. So we want to push the creep fast. Creep spread, I've talked with some Terran players about this, like Up a Tree Zelda and Juggernaut Jason. Creep spread is straight up intimidating. A lot of times you'll think about, well, what distinguishes players of skill? When they're talking about facing Zergs, if they see the creep spread as just at mid-map, really early, that is alarming. It's kind of like the walls are closing in because they can't take good engagements on creep, they can't build stuff on creep, it's also icky and sticky. So if you're kind of in the dark about what to do, just push creep out from you really fast, and that's a really good way to get map control, give yourself some safety, and also awareness and mobility through your bases. So your bases should all be connected, and your hatches should be injected. I think usually the priority would be inject uptime first, and then tumors with the rest of your energy. Here I think I invest a little bit extra in creep spread, which is fine. You can just add a queen. So 6 drones at a time, droning up really hard. 3:30 is usually the time when you refill the gas. And this is the moment where you have to do a bunch of different stuff now, because we just had our queens and our lings, but now we're hitting 3:30 to 3:40, and now is where the build really kind of reveals itself. We refill the gas at 3:30. We go for an Overlord Scout at 3:40. We just send it straight in the main. It's going to scout some stuff. Yes, it will probably die, but it's going to tell you what the Terran's build is. We make some Overlords to anticipate losing this guy. We get a Roach Warren, and then we should be getting 2 base mineral saturation, so we could also get some gases. These kind of all happen at once. You can go Overlord speed, or you can go lair. I think either one has its advantages and disadvantages. Overlord speed is less lethal. You don't really have a way to kill the opponent getting Overlord speed this early on. but it is really good for getting a super thorough scout. If you want to get a lair, that can be more lethal because it unlocks roach speed earlier, and there are some Terran builds where they're going to attack you, and if you defend it well with roaches, you can just take roach speed and sometimes get some super heavy damage on their side of the map. But this time, I'm going for a greedy approach, so I'm just going for Overlord speed for the information. The Overlord flew in, so I see Starport Tech Lab, and I see a third orbital command. So because I invested in Overlord speed, I'm not going to try to attack this. If I had Lair, maybe you could go for a Nidus against this if you want to try that. He is filling vision around the corner, so that's kind of a risky move. But the main idea is you're rushing 2 base saturation with 3 gas with a Roach Warren and Queens. That's your opening that keeps you safe. And you up your Ling count to 10. I guess I should have pointed out when that happened. You up your Ling count to 10. I think this is around the same time that I'm scouting now. When do the Lings get made? I'm trying to use these 4 Lings to deny the Reaper Scout. Yeah. So right as I hit 2 base mineral saturation on the line, I add some Lings. Having 10 Lings means that if they have 4 Hellions, they can't just drive it in, roast the Lings, and then roast a bunch of drones. That's a really annoying way to lose. And it happens at around 4 minutes. So I just made some extra ones. And you can't always rely on walling off either, because sometimes they'll go for a Hellion drop. So having a wall off is nice. It reduces their chances, but it doesn't make you perfectly safe. Link speed and then creep in the main is nice. This map has a ton of space in the main, so getting creep there is quite good. Another thing is, whenever you get a base that completes, inject it immediately. That's a really good way to boost your production and just get a ton more stuff in the game. A lot of times people have spending problems. They'll get a base, and maybe like 30 seconds to a minute later they'll inject it. And then they have 600 minerals, and they're like, how do I spend money? As soon as you get the hatch, boom, hit it with an inject. This build gives you enough queens that you don't really have an excuse to not inject, unless they did a huge attack with Hellbats and they killed a few of them. Notice how my drone count spills over 16? That's good. That's how Zerg should be played. You should think about massing drones in phases where either it's safe to drone or it's not safe to drone. You can fix all the details of it later. One thing that helped my economy management a lot was just holding down the button, and you can set up rapid fire for this, but you just do hatches, larva, drones. If you're in that phase of the game where it's safe to drone, and you overfill it, say this goes up to even 24, I could take a gas, I could take 2 evo chambers, I could take a hydroden when my layer is done. You can build a bunch of stuff that consumes the workers, and it allows you to power up super fast, rather than just saying, okay, I need 1 more worker here, so I'm going to make 1 worker, and then I'm going to look over here, and I'm going to make 1 more worker here. That really stops your pace in the game. Normally I would have made 5 roaches as soon as my roach horn was done, but since I saw the 3rd orbital being so fast, I made drones instead. So that's a greedy adjustment here to seeing a eco-focused play. And now I just have all my hatches pointed at the 3rd base, and I'm droning that up as fast as I can. Double ranged upgrades. You can go ranged or melee. If you're against mech, I think Roach Hydra Viper is still a really strong way to play. And I think maybe Hydroling Bane Swarm Host is good as well. Roach Ravager Swarm Host is good. Burrow Roaches are very good. If you get Burrow and Tunnel Claws, that's a nice way to harass a mech player. You can also go for around 7 mutas off a Spire, and then do a big Roach Ravager max out. That's a good style as well. And if you're against Bio, Hydroling Bane into Hive Tech is usually the go-to. But in this case, we have an Overseer for the Queens, so we have a bunch of Roaches to defend the ground stuff. We have a bunch of our tech going up here. Double upgrades, Roach Speed, Hydra Den. I'm rushing for a Viper timing, so that's nice. And as soon as you have a little bout with your opponent, they attack you with some stuff, the queen should be there. They should reestablish the creep and then push it as fast as they can. From the side of Terran, one of their responsibilities is maintaining the Zerg from just spiraling out of control in macro. Zerg can make workers faster than both Protoss and Terran, going up to a full 3 base economy. So that's usually why you'll have both Protoss and Terran doing some harassment in the early game, and Zerg is usually the defender. So being a good defender involves being able to have some solid units that allow you to hold stuff, having good information around the map of where the attacks are coming in, and then maintaining your production through the pressure. So trying to keep those injects up as much as you can. It's going to help a lot. I know a lot of times you pull too many queens. If you can get in the habit of making a queen if you pull the queen, that's really good for keeping your injects super consistent. So now I'm getting +2 range attack. For a Roach Hydra versus mech kind of style or a Swarm Host style, the attack upgrades are usually more important than the armor upgrades. Because stuff like tanks, they shoot pretty slow, so you don't really get a ton of value from armor. You get really good value from attack though, because Hydras shoot super fast. And you have lots of units firing at a time, if you have Roach Hydra or if you have Swarm Hosts. So as soon as my hive was done, I made 2 Vipers, and then I'm going to top off with Hydras and Roaches. And as my army is kind of staging this attack, I'm going to be breaking some structural rocks. Just open up the map. I have made the mistake sometimes of doing this too early, because if they're going for an aggressive style and you're attacking the rocks, sometimes they hit you with a big doom drop or a big drive-by of Hellions, so you should make sure your bases are very well defended and you have good creep around them before you go out on the map and kill some rocks. You can often wait until a little bit later to kill the rocks too, because as your army gets bigger and bigger, you can kill the rocks faster and faster, so you're not really in a hurry to kill them. So here I'm just kind of trying to decide whether I want to Blinding Cloud or Abduct based on the spread of the units and stuff. We're trading with Hydras and Roaches and Vipers, sending the Vipers back home, and then in the production tab, it's 22 Hydras, 5 Roaches, +2 armor. We'll get +3 ranged. But he dies to the next attack. This was basically the build that I wanted to show. And now I'll show the same build, but if the opponent opens aggressive as opposed to economically. I think it was the same map too. Same map. Cyberforce. This is the one. Okay. Another ZvT example. But what if they hit you with Heckbats and stuff? We'll call out some of the same stuff. 13 Overlord Scouts for cheese. Droning up. 17 Hatch. Boom. 18 Gas, 17 Pool. Doop-a-doop. Sweet. Drones fill the gas. 19 Overlord. Or I did an extra drone and then a 20 Overlord. It's not that big of a deal. So this one I'm hiding the drone. It's not a massive difference. You can do whatever fits better for you. But I'm just trying to keep my drones alive. I also don't really want to chase the Reaper. And a nice thing about injuring the Reaper is sometimes you're like, I want to kill it. If you push it back and it's low HP, that makes it safe to drop a tumor. And getting a tumor first at the natural is pretty nice, because a lot of times you want to take the third base anyway, so you don't really need that much larva at this stage. So creep tumor first at the natural, I think can be a really powerful way to establish creep spread here, and just also move you in your objective toward creeping the center of the map. So queens, I pulled 2 off gas after Ling speed. Production tab. Overlords, remember the 30 Overlord, and then as soon as that one's done, make another Overlord. Cancel the creep tumor to save it from the Reaper. Make it another queen. I refill the gas at 330. And now I'm going to go for a scout at 340. I see Hellions. I have my Roach Warren at around 345. Queen here. And now we see this. So this is a build. Maybe you haven't seen it. Maybe you won't see it that much. The specifics of this build don't really matter too much. But basically this is an aggressive Hellbat Viking attack. I saw Koss do this to Lambo on Lambo's stream, so this is a high level build. Even though it seems kind of weird and silly. But it's apparently good enough that they're doing it. And it could be that. It could also be 2 Liberators coming out of this. It could also be 2 Medivacs, technically. So given that, I just want to have some solid defensive stuff. So it's the same kind of thing, but instead of droning when the Roach Horn is done, I am going to make Roaches to defend. Because last time we saw a fast third orbital command, which is a super economic opening. Whereas this is not. They're going to invest in more units earlier. So I made my extra lings. Went up to 6. May have lost a couple. 6 lings. Now I'm making Roaches. I want to have 2 base mineral saturation, give or take. It is kind of spread out because I took a faster 3rd base. But I took a lair this game instead of Overlord speed. That allows me to get Roach speed faster, which makes me a lot more dangerous. If they attack you, like I said before, and you hold really well, with Roach speed you can often just swing back and deal a bunch of damage. So let me see my perspective here. I have 43 workers. I do have the bonus value of kind of knowing how this build works. And regardless, even if they don't attack me, when Roach speed is done, I can attack. So now it's tons of Hellbats and 4 Vikings. I'm going to transfuse with your queens. Back up some stuff so you don't take too much splash. And then in the production tab through this, I have 3 more Roaches. I don't remember if I droned or if I just massed Roaches, but I am making 6 Overlords right now. Why am I making 6? Well, because my economy is picking up. I have more drones now. Units tab. 47 and I have 6 on the way. And Roaches also take up a ton of supply. That's one of the downsides of the unit. They can't shoot up, they take a ton of supply, and they're kind of low DPS. But they're really cheap and they have a ton of health, so those are their upsides. So I'm just attacking with the Roaches that I have, and I'm droning my 3rd base, with Burrow and Tunnel Claws as my next transition. Mindset-wise, a lot of Terran players aren't really expecting to need to build missile turrets, especially if they have a ton of Roaches in their base. This player ends up just dying to this attack, but if they didn't die, I would still kind of go with this Burrow and Tunnel Claws follow-up. You can also burrow 1 ling at each potential expansion. That's a super strong way to play the game, because you know exactly when they're taking a base, and they have to invest in lethal means and also detection to be able to establish it. But yeah, that's the basic idea. It's kind of all around the 3-minute 40 moment. If you can get to 3 minutes 40 without being supply blocked, do your Overlord Scout with the Roach Warren behind it, with their refilled gas, and then get your 2 base saturation with 3 gas, layer and Roach speed, make like 5 Roaches, and you should be pretty much fine for the early game. It's not a big deal if they end up going bio, because your 340 Scout would tell you, like say it's 2-1-1, you just cancel the Roach Warren and then make Evo Chambers and you go 1-1 Lings, and it's kind of the normal old school ZvT of 2017. But yep, there's your safe Roach guide. Safe 2 base to 3 base Roach Queen opener in Zerg versus Terran. Question: do you throw down the Roach Warren regardless of the Scout? Yeah, you throw down the Roach Warren kind of at the same time. Throw it down at the same time as the Scout, and the Scout happens fast enough that you can cancel it if you did see something like a 2-1-1 setup. I mean, you're going to see the 8 Marines pretty fast as soon as you send the Overlord into the natural. So from there, yeah, you can not build the Roach Warren. You could also do the same style with a Bane Nest instead of a Roach Warren, and you could make 5 Banes instead of 5 Roaches. It can be a little bit harder to defend a lot of the Hellbat pressure with that style, and you do want to make sure you have some active links to morph into emergency Banes. But the same principle could apply there, where instead of taking Roach speed, you take Bane speed as soon as your lair is done. Bane speed early keeps you really safe against a lot of the quick 2-tank Marine timings, if they're playing bio like that against you. Could you use this build in ZvP? Yes, it's actually pretty similar to a ZvP macro opening. Actually, wow, yeah, it's very similar. It's just a solid way to open up with Zerg. Queens and Roaches are just solid. They're beefy units. They're not fast before Roach speed, so they're not good for all-inning early unless you use a Nidus. Follow-up question. Do you think a very early Overlord speed is worth it at all? Yeah, I did that in the first game against Avilo. So it just changes the scenario. The Overlord speed before lair is a more defensive choice, where you get better information than you would from a lair, but you're also less lethal to your opponent early on. Like, you can't hit him with the speed roach timing as fast as I did there. So you're more committed to 3 base saturation if you go Overlord speed. But you're not going to lose as many Overlords to Vikings or whatever, Liberators. You can get a really thorough scout, and you can protect your Overlords well if they're trying to snipe them, like with Marines and Medivacs. When do I make spores? 4 minutes 30 is the standard spore timing in ZvT. You can put 1 spore in the main a little bit faster than that if you scout a barracks, factory, and starport, and the starport has no add-on, but it's making a unit. Usually that's going to be either a Medivac to heal some Hellbats, or it's going to be, or drop some Hellions, I guess I should say, or it's going to be a Liberator to harass your main. So generally in response to that, you drop a spore in the main at around 4:15, and you just don't have to worry about your main as much. You can focus your queens on the frontal defense.